Greetings and welcome to this video. Today we're going to talk about some recent announcements, mostly related to the High Seas announcement that kind of came out recently. So that's pretty sweet, actually. I would say it's been hinted at, but that would lead too much into where I want to go with this video. Basically, they had a really neat trailer here, which I'm assuming I'm allowed to play, so we'll see what happens. I'm just going to go ahead and play it here with the audio really low here. It just shows this really cool intro with, essentially the kind of CG effect of, I don't know if this is like a card art or something, but obviously there's a pirate ship here. There's a theme for that, right? And then they kind of blend into the High Seas, which is a new set that is being talked about and saying here it's June 6th, and they're going to have some pre-release events there in Taipei in advance of that. So this is that mystery set between now and Gen Con that we were trying to figure out, and some bits of information that are publicly available, right? There had been a leak or a oopsie or an accidental posting. I guess I could talk about it. Everybody else and their mother has seemed to have talked about it. So, I mean, I don't want to take away from the hype of what it could be. But obviously, we know with the dev talk that recently happened, James White did use the word pirates. And we're gonna kind of circle back to that briefly here. And one of the things I want to point out is, set sail to Taipei for the world premiere of High Seas. So High Seas being this nautical set, so I have to talk about the nautical nonsense is something you wish, then, it's not SpongeBob SquarePants, but it's instead Flesh and Blood, doing some pretty cool Flesh and Blood stuff. So this is a set that I'm excited about. Obviously, DM Armada probably has had an aneurysm, so somebody please go check on him, because this is a pirate set, and I'm sure he is just going to be head over tails over it. I know I'm very excited about this, but that's also because I have a lot of personal investment in the pirate theme stuff, from whether I do that at, I guess my favorite Halloween costume has been a pirate-based thing, or, I guess for lack of a better word, I guess Renaissance Festival might be a good one, but I'm more of a steampunk style. But those are things that, we can discuss at a later point. But anyways, with this, looks like there is a fresh-faced landlubber, a salty old sea captain, or a sneaky stowaway. I'm assuming that is their acronyms for the three types of maybe classes or talents that might be within this set, right? I have some notes written on the side of that. The loot is yours for the plundering. Rip open packs the latest set before anybody, and the cutthroat calling, so on and so forth. Very limited information, right? So this is just kind of the first initial guess. But looking back at time here, right? So what I did is I went back to the February and went through a listing of every Flesh and Blood set that it was out. So Welcome to Wraith, Arcane, Crucible, Monarch, Tales, Everfest. I skipped History Pack since it's a repeat. Technically, Crew is a repeat too, so there was really none there. Uprising, Dynasty, Outsiders, Dust Till Dawn, Round the Table, Bright Lights, Heavy Hitters, Part the Mist Veil, Rosetta, and the latest here being the Hunted. Now, as they've kind of done this, right, there has been little inklings of hints for different things throughout the, I guess, history of the game. And I wanted to first touch on the class component, right? There's some talk about the classes and whether or not Pirate will be an actual class. So I am curious whether or not Pirate will be an actual class, or if it's going to be a talent or a subset of something interesting. So I want to take a look at this. This is something I haven't seen anybody else really talk about, but if you take out the class specific, so if we click that, cha-ching, and get rid of it, right? So now we're down to the items. We get rid of the equipment, the hero, and the weapons, and we're now down to the talents that exist. So, right, this is lightning, ice, earth, elemental, draconic, light, shadow. So those are pretty much the talents as we go across the top here. You'll notice that Mechanologist does not have a talent. Assassin does have Mystic, and Adjudicator is kind of this, its own little thing. Now, I don't necessarily know if we're going to see anything in these, but based on the D&D, because I do a decent chunk of D&D now, one time a week, on Mondays, and I am actually originally playing a rogue assassin, but I switched into a swashbuckler class. So swashbuckler is a pirate, but there's also buccaneers, there's sea rogues, there's privateers. Just about any of the classes can be given a specific pirate twist. A fighter can be your typical pirate, like a bruiser or an archer. Rangers could be, a pirate with like a bow or a crossbow, maybe even a parrot. Theoretically, that'd be kind of fun to have like a, a summonable parrot. Sorcerers can also be kind of like a wizard pirate, depending on how you were to spec out your magic. Necromancy is also something we kind of are maybe hinting at with this set, and we'll get to that and why we're looking at it, because it's a subclass. So necromancy could probably be like a talent in the case of Flesh and Blood. But really, as an example, the rogue class that I am really kind of fills in a lot of that. Now, again, I kind of mentioned swashbuckler at some point, but there's also maybe a duelist is another option. So we look at the main talents here and some of the thoughts of what could be there, right? Could it be a talent similar to the shadow and light kind of a thing, right? Or maybe because ranger is hinted at in a later part, maybe it's a different mode of ranger, or we've seen that there's a mechanologist piece. Maybe it's just a layering effect. Maybe this is the first time we get to see something that, is a generic, or it's like maybe a majorly generic type set, but then there's a class thing that's like, if you're wearing this specific piece of equipment that gives you this trait or trademark, you get a bonus. I mean, that'd be wordy on cards. It may not work, but that's one thought. Also, looking at the map, which I'll have to pull up, I don't actually have that right in front of me here, but there is a large number of options looking at my notes over here where you could have a Ruin Blade option. Mechanologist, as I mentioned, you could have a brand new class that's not on here, which is your Necromancer, or theoretically, like Bard could actually kind of work for some of this, right? And that's alluded to in some of the later pieces of equipment that showcase some of the water or nautical style artwork that exists in the game currently. And as I have kind of begun to dive deeper into some of this, right, the following bits of information up here kind of go through all of the sets and look for things that are water-based, pirate-based, necromancy kind of based, and maybe monsters, sea creatures, or mutation-based items. All right, so I did pull up the World of Wraith map as we know it, right? And one of the things I've kind of wanted to talk about with this is that there is what appears to be a jutted piece of land here, right? There is oceans abound, but then over here you don't get to see it. So there is a greater peninsula or thing that's here, and we have been exploring this section. So things could happen, right? We could zoom out and we could have another piece of land that's to the north, to the south, to the west, maybe, or east. I guess it depends on what your compass is here. We don't really actually have a compass, so maybe east, west, north, south, right, depending on what you're looking at. But one of the three sides right now is landlocked. The others are ocean locked or tributary locked or something, right? But it does appear that this may go into kind of a vast beyond. Now we've looked at places, Mysteria, we've been there, Ari, we've been there, Metrics in the Pits. There's some theory around this section of the map here where the Truce card or treaty card that we can talk about later kind of looks like it may have some involvement with this area, so that's something to consider. We do see kind of these little serpentine monsters that really kind of exist, or at least have something down here, which is near Volcor, but in the ocean, near the kind of the monastery, and there's some lore-based parts that kind of tie some of this together. We really don't know anything about it, right? We've not really ventured into the sea, so this would be the first time. The closest we've got is really in the pits, and where we kind of get some card mappings of that. So let's go ahead and begin by looking at some of the options here. So I kind of started to pick some cards that, as we look at these cards, they're not all pirate based, but this one here, it involves water, and it does, some of the ninja tie-ins do have a lot of water based stuff. And one of the things that I really noticed is that, like in sets like Mysteria down later, there's a lot of water based theming within that. But even starting really early on with like Last Ditch Effort, which is in WTR, right, there are some skeleton kind of things. Now these are more, I would say, less evil-looking skeletons, if there's a way to catalog that. But you still have something happening here, and we're not really sure whether or not these are brutes or demons or something. But it looks like maybe they're either helping or pulling this person in. We can't really tell, but For the creatures that feed on fear, the moment of death is a veritable feast. So it looks like there's a lot happening in this, but that's an example of one of the types of cards we're looking at when we start looking at the artwork. Drone of Brutality I wanted to bring up here because, again, this is kind of an interesting, it's not sea-based, but, you have this kind of like tribute of, people and these look humanoid, right, and skulls, and they're, on display, Vlad the Impaler style kind of a thing, so that's definitely something that, could lead toward a hint at a class or a type of archetype of class. Sink Below, which this talks about those blessed with the Aether have incredible gift, the power to shape the fabric of reality. I think this is not water, but instead this is a portal, and you can kind of see there are things that are coming through, right? This is like a reflection of something, but it does kind of have like a water-ish type theme to it, but it really does look more like a Stargate puddle or a portal type of thing. The first really major piece of artwork that I would believe would kind of fall into the category of what I'm referencing here as, nautical artwork is going to be the Eye of Ophidia, which is a, staple fabled from the Arcane Rising series here. And you can see that this eye, right, looks maybe if you were to take it out of context, this is a pendant or a charm, but that eye itself may have come from a sea creature or a sea something, right? And that theme kind of continues forward. When you look at Ridge Rider shots, this is also from Arcane, right? So you have your Ranger class up here, but then down here, right, what are these? These really weren't Ranger class, but these appear to be more of like in my D&D session, right? My character can look something like this, where, you're kind of walking around and doing something. This might be just standard townfolk, but it also could be a pirate. That, who knows? Next up here, we have Take Aim, and this is, again, a Ranger shooting at something that is undead or decrepit looking in here. So that is what we're taking that card for. Moving on with Arcane Rising, we got Pursuit of Knowledge. Now, it's really not a necessarily pirate or, evil-looking card. This is something that kind of hints at like a good or a different, almost like a Rosetta style or, ascendancy type card. But I wanted to point this out because, it does have the makings of what could be another class that we have not seen, but not maybe related to the current classes that may be coming up in the next set. This card has been one that I've always, kind of alluded to looking at. This is definitely a very interesting one with this Atelia here person is, and when I drain the very last drop of blood from your veins, when you struggle to draw your last breath with your failing lungs, it won't be soon enough. Now, this could be a necromancer, it could be a vampire, it could be a shaman, it could be any type of those type of things, but you'll see here that this person is basically taking the essence of that person. There is what seems to be a gravestone in the background there. So this was one of the first, and this is again an Arcane Rising, kind of a look at what may possibly come in the future. I don't believe we've seen much from this name since then. Plunder Run, a very notoriously well-known card, looks also to be something that could be a looter type of a scenario here, and in the background you have maybe like a cave or something, right? But typically this could be, again, what looks to be like a rogue, a swashbuckler, or somebody trying to, again, loot or get something out. So loot typically associated with the piracy type thing. Cavernous Contraband, very similar here, where we see that this is a sea-based or seafaring thing, later probably known as the Pits, possibly could be what that is. And you'll notice that there is just some water-based things here, so that's something to talk about. Jumping on to Crew, right, we have more ninja cards that in this case are more related to the water-based type of component. But yeah, that's just where I'm going to leave that. It could be anywhere, but it is water. Increased Attention is another Ranger card, right? And you see this like little beastie kind of thing. And again, that same town in here, which, could be the Pits, right? And something coming out of the water like Godzilla. So maybe there'll be some sort of, evil beasts that, the Pits are keeping at bay that we're not really familiar with, right? We got some like human or maybe elvish type looking people here, dwarf maybe, I don't know, that's not really a dwarf, but either way, they're firing a giant ass crossbow, which is way too big for a typical human. And anything we've seen in the size of this game, even a brute, that's bigger, that's bigger than a brute. So, look at the size of the houses in the town. Something's up with this card. Maybe there's some indication here. Moving on to Monarch, I want to talk about Exude Confidence here, which, I can't really tell if this is a bunch of bones, and in the background that's the sky, or maybe this is a Ocean Wave. That was the only reason I kind of wanted to look into that. I'm really not sure what the actual backdrop is there, but it could indicate something. Rouse the Ancients. Again, another giant, big old honking thing here that obviously comes from the land. There's some little, lion-looking thing with like maybe a horn summoning or calling or doing something. When the veil wanes, the Ancients shall rise once more. The Ancients obviously being, some common thread amongst the fab thing. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if the Ancients are part of something for the PvE component. But we'll just have to wait and see. Now this right here, Outmuscle and Monarch, that screams pirate shanties to me, because in the background I see these kind of groups of people at a bar. This was even kind of maybe an early hint at heavy hitters, because of the wager mechanic, right, of this gold and stuff, which, because they're talking about loot, right, it's viable. Break Tides, again, not really much to say here other than it's rainy. But this ninja individual here is kind of going after stuff. But because of this building, this does not appear to me to be on sea. Everfest. Everfest is a pretty sweet all-around set, right? Lots of things. Every time everybody mentions Everfest, things go crazy. Drowning Dire here is like some sort of necromantic zombie undead thing pulling somebody under the water with a sword or something. So that could be like a mermaid thing. Yeah, but it's a rune blade, so there's that. This is really the first chance we got to see at a Kraken's Aether Vein, right? And this is where you kind of get the Cthulhu vibes. This card was originally assigned to, what would that be? It would have been Icelander. So when Icelander went this living legend out, but this is one of the few, I would say, thematic underwater style. I mean, looking at this kind of creature-based looking, type thing. So wizard. So maybe a pirate is not necessarily a class-specific thing, or maybe it is something that is, like I said, something that might impact it. Now, when we start going into looking at the most obvious type stuff, right? Outsiders brought in the Trench of Sunken Treasures, and by golly, that is one of the cutest, coolest things ever. Like the extended art of this, which is also kind of something to talk about. I didn't bring it up on the photos here, but the extended art shows even more, and there's fishing nets and a ship. So this is like the quintessential pirate-based kind of thing here. And inside of it, right, you got you see a little more of his face in the hat, right? So maybe this will be one of the actual characters in the upcoming set. That'd be pretty sweet. Like that would be a hell of a cosplay. I have, I don't have the beard. I'm not on camera because I don't feel exactly 100%, but the beard here, that would be super fun. I could grow my beard out like that and give me an excuse. Next up, we have Quiver of Abyssal Depths, right? So this is, again, another indication of, look at these tentacle-looking things. This is also in Outsiders, and you can see that there is this kind of almost eerily similar type, nautical thematic piece here. And yeah, so that could also indicate something. We have the second most blatant pirate item, which has been one of my favorite ones, the Fleetfoot Sandals, and it is such a beautiful card. The cold foil of this, which I have already purchased my share of these, so anybody else feel free, but these look really good in cold foil, especially with the sunset and shiny. This card really is fantastic. Free Reeling Renegades. Now, this individual, Lena Bell, puff out your chest, even more than that now, you're ready to fight. This is interesting because she looks like a pirate, has a pirate hat, right? But Lena Bell, if I remember right, was actually somebody that was mentioned. I don't recall if this was the promo card. There was a Flesh and Blood special, it was a mechanologist young hero, and I'm going to do a wild search. While I do this, I don't think it'll show up. No. There was a special hero that was given out. It was a promo only hero, and I don't remember if it had anything to do with. It was a mechanologist card, but it was a Beatrice, I think, or Butress. So never mind. I'm mixing things up. But Lena Bell is in this, and it does scream pirate, so there could be a option here. This was again an Outsiders, which was a Ranger-based set, but you also notice that there is somebody else creeping along up here, and then there's somebody in the background here. So there's something. I'm sure that word means something. A couple people might be able to call that out. Outsiders continued with the Scout the Periphery, which is again looking to be some sort of like gated type thing, maybe trying to keep a monster or people out, right? This was another card that kind of indicated to me maybe this guy is on the top of one of these bell towers that's being built, but it could also be related. Now, as we get further down the road in Dusk Till Dawn, the only card I could find in here was this Figment of Tenacity, which is kind of like this giant sea monster, right? It kind of a thing that if we go back to that map, right, could be that part out on the map itself. So there is this sea anemone monster thingy that's pretty sweet looking out there. I mean, that's it's definitely it's got some cool vibage going on with it. I don't know what it'll be, but you know, if it did ever end up being something, you know, that'd be pretty stellar. I mean, I'd be thrilled endlessly to see that. Yeah, going. I'm looking for a piece of document right there. And on here, right, we have kind of like, it looks like maybe it's beating something or like sinking a ship, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's in the air. I don't know. So, TCC, this gets back into the Bard thing, right? So TCC has this like cute little Bard person, you know, hanging off like what looks to be a nice little pond or a mellow fishing thing. So this is kind of where I said maybe Bard could have some impact here. Moving on to heavy hitters, we have this Reelin, which again is ranger based, right? So we see this captain looking dude here again, and then we got a bunch of shipmates and people, and you got, you know, it's catching some tentacle monster thing, right? So there's that. And then another really interesting card here, which is from part the Mistveil, is Emissary of Tides. This is also what appears to be an underwater one, and it's ANHE Katorni Weavebender. In the depths of the ocean, a world unseen awaits, where the song and the tides reveal secrets of a forgotten age. So that, again, lends me to thinking that there could be some underwater component or maybe adventuring component, which could also lead into, you know, I don't want to say PvE, because that'd get my hopes up too much for people, right? But it could have some, you know, maybe PvP, PvE style components where we could leverage these to, you know, get a crew of people together, abandon a ship, and do some stuff, right? So that's interesting. Now, cut through the facade here, or facade, it shows a clear pirate in the background with these ghost people kind of screwing up a necromancer, right? So this is a Rosetta card that seems pretty interesting. And then you have 10-foot tall and bulletproof, which is the only reason I'm putting this in here, right, is because you have kind of a myriad of people in this, but you kind of showcase in this component back to the kind of tavern feel, the D&D component, which is why I linked that in earlier. Call to the Grave, very clear here, which is, you know, some sort of cave-looking thing with a necromantic type thing happening with what even appears to be maybe a pirate or you know, undead-looking thing. This, you know, different classes here that have been shifted to undead. This one looks more piratey than this one, who looks more like, you know, warrior-y. So that is a thing, right? There's this particular card. Truce. This is the reason I actually made this, right? So looking at this map, right, there's a, I don't even know if I can zoom in, but if we get real up in there, you got this steampunky kind of person, or aeronaut, you know, adventurer, talking to somebody who looks like they might possibly be, you know, druid or druidic, and you have this map of what kind of looks like Wraith, but then you have this like dotted line looking thing that maybe extends up. So if we thought of one of these two as like the peninsula we know, then maybe there's an island. And now, so right there, if you take a look, right, that is that circle outcropping right there. If we go back to the map, and I'm going to lose my place, Ross 252. If I go back to the map, that circle outfitting is right there. So it's upside down. So if you take that and you look further up, it goes doo-doo-doo-doo and goes all the way up. So let's go back to Ross 252. Oh my gosh, I'm going to find it. There it is, Ross 219. So we see it there. We see it there, which means that we would be going up because of where this peninsula is, right? So there's a peninsula looking thing there. And then we go back to the map. We kind of see a little bit of a peninsula looking thing, but then there's land that juts out here, and then we don't know what's on the other side. So as we go back to the peninsula thing, we could be going up because this clearly is that area with that, or maybe it's a different one of those. I mean, to me, it looks kind of cut and dry as far as we're going somewhere, but we're going to go through like a sea that may be uncharted. I mean, looks like there's some dragon monster thingy there or some chain of islands, but again, that's just my theory. Plan for the worst, again, kind of maybe a piratey, swashbuckly. Dang, sorry, sneezed on that. Then we're finally going to get into the hunted cards, which lay low, right? Showing some sort of like monster hunting people trying to hide from that. So that would be more the necromantic kind of thing. Monkeys, right? Traditionally, typically something with pirates is something people talk about, having a monkey companion or a parrot companion. Pirates of the Caribbean, like you got the nip at the heels with Mr. Two Left Feet, and you got this little sea monster looking crustacean thing, SpongeBob SquarePants style. No, I'm just kidding. That's too mean. But it's definitely something, right? It's a crustacean. It's crab man. I just wanted to call out the beard guy, the bunker beard. It's pretty cool. Dwarves. We got Rotten Remains, which shows Cavdane here, right? Cavdane could mean that merchants might be in the next set. Right, that'd be cool. Like merchants, bards, and pirates. Merchants, bards, and I don't know, rangers, because rangers, there's a lot of ranger stuff. And then we got the most clear, concise version of a hero here. So maybe this is a hero, and the beard guy is a hero. That'd be fantastic. That's maybe two of the heroes, right? Pirate ship, black flags, right? Black sails, clearly important stuff. And then I wanted to call this out because I couldn't really tell, but I don't know if this is like an awning, but the last card I found was these where it looks like maybe this person standing is in front of like a ship, or maybe it's just like street stalls that have, things, but maybe Beckoner boots is something to look at. I don't know, just it seemed unique. So yeah, so outside of that, I mean, there's stuff I'd love to talk about that I think came out in the spoiled piece, but I want to not go into that at the moment. I'm going to try to remain that. I mean, people can find it, people have talked about it, but I'm assuming that kind of just clues typically, talk about what we could look into. So I think that the class itself will be interesting, or if it's a talent, it'll be interesting. At the very end of the dev talk, like I said, LS, as James had said, there'll be pirates. So I'm not sure if that's pirates in the physical sense, like an actual new class, right? Going back to the class breakdowns, because we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 real classes at the moment. And if we wanted to introduce a whole class, part of the discussion or part of the conversation that needs to be thought through is the quantity of cards to bring a class to relevancy, unlike what happened with Dynasty, where Assassin came out and it was kind of lagging behind. Well, you'll notice that the new bar is about 300. So in theory, if we take out weapons, heroes, and equipment, your new low bar is about 250. If the average set size for the later sets, looking at the hunted, and just kind of getting, I used to have it to where I could see all the set, quantity of numbers. I think they've taken that away on February. Darn. But just kind of looking at the total number of cards in each set, they could easily fully flesh out an entire class in one single set at this point, because you're anywhere between probably 200 to be viable, up to 250 to 300. So if they made the entire set pirate-based in some capacity, but then gave you a bonus if you were running it in Ranger, because theoretically, right, anybody can be a pirate. And I think that's the takeaway for me, right, is maybe the catch here is going to be anybody can be a pirate, or maybe it will truly be that pirate class that people have thought that's going to be. I do think there's some sort of monster type thing. I don't know. I mean, there's so many ways you could approach this. So, I mean, I have ideas of like ways you could dual label a card. Like this says Katsu specialization, but picking here, right? If you had a text box that says, you know, blah 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 blah, but also if you have something equipped, then do this, or if you can play this from your pitch zone if you are wearing a whatever. Like, you know, there's options that we could do that would be interesting. I don't want to talk. Yeah, the problem is in all my ideas I can't really go into without going into that spoiler thing. So I think that's where I'm going to wrap this up. This is a longer video, but it's just one I wanted to make, and this will kind of hopefully give you an idea of where my brain has been with the Hunted and the new announcement of High Seas. So it's pretty cool stuff. Pirate ships. I've 3D printed 3 pirate ships, laser cut 2 pirate ships, and built those. And those are for my D&D campaigns. So yeah, this will be some exciting stuff. So, all right, until next time, may your games be fun, your friendships grow. Cheers. Also, subscribe, like, comment, share, do that thing.